Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Cruise News Show. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news updates. Well, before we get into today's show, let's talk a little bit about yesterday's show. It was kind of spicy. Look, my goal, I'll peel the curtain back. My goal yesterday was twofold. Obviously, I wanted to talk about cruises to nowhere, and I wanted to give some insight into the legislation behind cruises to nowhere, the legislation that kind of prevents them. And I feel like I did that. And then I also wanted to expose what I think is a major problem in today's society, and that's our inability to hear people out. I knew when I hit publish yesterday there would be people that would get the video, that would listen to it, that would connect with the message, and there would be people that wouldn't even give it a chance, and that would be obvious in the comments. And so for the people that listen to the message, I'm going to continue to challenge you. I'm going to encourage you to be a little less political in your life, a little less political in your philosophy, that try to find another filter to run life's events through, because running everything through the politic filter is a challenge, because the politic filter is set up as an us versus them, and in a time where we need to be a we. If you're running your life events through an us versus them, then you'll fall short. You'll always have an enemy, and it's much better to unite and do things together than to fight with an enemy. Very little gets done when you spend most of your time fighting. And for the people that just dismissed it outright, I would challenge you not to do that. The problem that we have in today's society is that we will not listen to other people, that we hold so tightly to the things that we believe in our own opinions, and we're so emboldened in them that we fail to grow because we fail to listen. That's just my opinion. And look, there were a lot of people yesterday that said, I will never watch you again. And so if you're one of those people that have committed to never watching me again and you're here today, it's good to have you. Now let's talk some cruise news. The first story up is another story about a ship going bye-bye. That's right, this ship, the Marella Dream from TUI Cruises, it was set to leave the fleet in 5 years, but that exit has been accelerated by the pandemic, by the financial hardship brought forth by what's going on in 2020. This ship has been in service for TUI for 10 years. It did have sailings scheduled from November 2020 into next year. All of those sailings will be canceled, and passengers will be notified with the ability to book another cruise. But we've got another cruise ship leaving the fleet. Let's all say goodbye to the Marella Dream. But as we've mentioned on the show before, we got ships going and we've got ships coming, and there is a new ship out there for Holland American Line, and it's called the MS Rotterdam. Okay, they've used that name several times. I think this is the third or fourth iteration of the MS Rotterdam, but they launched it. It's good to go. We have a new Rotterdam back in the fleet. Now, the Rotterdam will be joining sister ships in the Pinnacle class there for Holland American Line, the new Stoddendam and the Koningsdam. They have a guest capacity of 2,668 passengers. And so we can see that already some of the cruise lines that lost cruise ships in 2020 are getting cruise ships back. Holland America losing 4 cruise ships earlier in the year, and now we've got capacity returning. Let me sneak in a quick programming announcement. Myself, Don Terrace, will be on Traveling with Bruce's channel tomorrow night, Wednesday, October the 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I think we're still in daylight time. We're going to be chopping up the cruise news. If you watch Traveling with Bruce, if you watch Don, if you watch me, you know that we all have a little bit different take on what's going on in the world, and it should be an interesting conversation. So if you got a little bit of time tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Before the debates, come check out me, Don, and Bruce chopping up the news. Now I'm going to stick my favorite cruise news story of today right in the middle of the show. We're going to talk about an exotic excursion that you can take on a new cruise line next year. Florida-based Atlas Ocean Voyages starting up a new cruise line, and they're taking you to some exotic places. And the new excursion that you can book for next year on this cruise line is a day trip to Chernobyl. Yep, that Chernobyl in the Ukraine. The big nuclear disaster place, Chernobyl. You can go there for a day trip. Now, the disaster happened in 1986. I was just 15 years old. I remember it vividly on the news, and more recently, I just watched the miniseries on HBO about Chernobyl, and it is fascinating. I've seen another documentary or two, and what's interesting now, in the time since the disaster at Chernobyl, they've built a building around the reactor. They're starting to disassemble it all these years later, but there is a town where a lot of the workers at Chernobyl lived right next to the plant called Pripyat. And you can go there, and it's like a ghost town. I've seen video. You can wander around there. There are safe zones at Chernobyl, and that's where this cruise line is going to take you for a day trip to Chernobyl. It's pretty exotic. I think that's neat. It's a tragic place. A lot of death there, which is again, tragic. But it's a fascinating spot. I would definitely go there. It begs the question. I've never made the list. I need to make the list. What are some weird things that you would love to see on a cruise ship that you didn't even know that you could see on a cruise ship? If you got anything in mind, leave that in the comments below. And of course, Chernobyl, it was a disaster of epic proportions. A small disaster would be missing out on the daily cruise news. So here's an opportunity for me to suggest that if you like the cruise news, please consider subscribing to this channel with the notification bell on. Do it. Now let's talk Norwegian Cruise Lines. They had the big announcement yesterday about more cruise cancellations, but another announcement that kind of went not reported so hugely in the mainstream is the fact that Frank Del Rio, the CEO of Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, he got an extension of his employment contract. Norwegian signed Del Rio on to a 3-year extension with a base salary of $1.8 million. Now, while that's a lot of coin for many of us, it's not a lot of coin for Frank Del Rio. It's reported that his 2019 compensation was around $18 million. But of course, we got bad times right now, and so they've scaled back at least what that base salary is. And I don't think Frank's getting a bonus in 2020, but he does have the option to bonus in 2021. And the contract's really interesting. Base salary, $1.8 million. He's got all the cool perks. He gets cars and other allowances. He probably gets free haircuts. I don't know. I'm making that up. But he's got stock options, all those kind of things that you get for being a bigwig. But the interesting thing is, if he hits all of his bonus goals, he could get 400 times his base salary. What I'm trying to say here is Frank is making a lot of money, and Frank is making decisions. I'm excited that Frank's making a lot of money. Hopefully he's motivated by that money to keep me safe on a cruise. Because honestly, if people aren't safe on cruises, there's going to be no bonuses. There's going to be no cruises. And so, yes, hopefully this is an incentive and a motivation to keep us safe on a cruise. So, good luck to you, Frank. Do a good job. Now, Norwegian Cruise Line did make a decision that they announced yesterday that they decided they weren't going to cruise in November of 2020. And that was disappointing. Certainly, a lot of people reached out, said they got their cruises canceled. There's nothing more disappointing than the canceled cruise notification. I believe that. And so, yeah, a lot of people getting cruise cancellations yesterday, and it makes you scratch your head. Look, like a few weeks ago, all of the cruise leaders, they were together. They were banging on tables. I don't know if they were banging on tables, but they were saying, look, you should let us open up again. Don't extend the no-sell order. We're ready to cruise. Let's do it. And so November's open for cruising, and now we've got NCL saying, well, we're not going to cruise even though it's open. So how do we reconcile that? Well, let's work out the history. Let's work out the timeline. When the cruise leaders were saying we're ready to cruise again, please don't extend the no-sell order. At that time, the no-sell order was set to expire on September the 30th. And so if the no-sell order expired on September the 30th, that would have left the whole month of October for cruise lines to get ready in November. Sure, they had the voluntary ban they put in place themselves through CLIA, but again, that's not as big of a hurdle as the CDC no-sell order. Well, what we see last week is the CDC no-sell order extended all the way through October, and so you really can't cruise again until November, and maybe that's the circumstance that caused NCL to say we're not ready to go again. I could see that happening. It's going to cost a tremendous amount of money to bring crews back on cruise ships, to get them trained. It's going to take a significant amount of time. And would you risk doing all that if you don't know for sure that you can sail again in November? And that's the reality. We're on a countdown again. It's the 6th of October. We're waiting until October the 31st to see if the CDC extends the no-sell order or lets it expire. And so in reality, the work that the cruise companies are doing this month, if it is to get cruising again in November, it could be all for nothing, because the no-sell order could be extended. Maybe that's the play that Norwegian's taking. We'll start getting ready when we know for sure that we can cruise. And so if the CDC no-sell order officially expires at the end of October, then they'll take the month of November to get ready to cruise in December. But you may be saying, well, that's not what Carnival did. They're going to roll the dice on November. That's true. They canceled everything except cruises going out of Miami and Port Canaveral. That leaves them just a little bit of preparation work to do. I mean, it's still massive to get everything ready, but it's not like they're getting their whole fleet ready. They're just getting a few cruise ships. So maybe they're willing to risk whatever capital that takes to do that, whatever operating expense it takes to do that. And maybe they're going to be the first cruise line to have cruise ships out there because they're willing to spend that money and take the risk. Even Carnival has said, even though they left the door open for November, it's not 100% that it's going to happen. And then you wonder what's going on with Royal Caribbean. Well, yesterday, CEO of Royal Caribbean, Richard Fain, dropped a video on travel agents, and it was a pretty insightful video. You can find it on the internet. Let me just give you some of the highlights. The thing that makes me most excited about Richard Fain's conversation yesterday is he has completely embraced the cruise bubble. And if you've been watching the show for any amount of time, you know I am a big fan of the cruise bubble. I'm a big fan of bubbles in general, but the cruise bubble, let me give you the breakdown. The cruise bubble starts when everybody who enters the bubble, before you can get into the bubble, you have to have a negative COVID test. In some instances, you have to have multiple negative COVID tests. And so you got to have a negative test to get in. And then once you get in the bubble, everything is controlled. There's social distancing. There's a masking policy. There's policies for everything, and the policies are enforced. I like it. There's nowhere else in my life like that right now. The whole goal of the cruise bubble is to keep the virus out of that thing. And again, there's nowhere in my life right now where that's true. There's nowhere that I can go where there is everybody in the same building that has a negative COVID test. There's nowhere that I can go that I know that the masking policy is going to be enforced, at least in my town. There's nowhere that I can go where people are going to be reminded to social distance. There's nowhere that I can go where the health protocols that I personally believe help reduce the spread of the virus are in play. And I know the debate is raging out there. Those protocols are just a sham. They don't work anyway. So here's the reality. Let's all take it in together. The cruise bubble exists on the MSC Grandiosa in Italy. They've been cruising since July. They don't have any recorded outbreaks, and they're doing the cruise bubble with all the health protocols. So there's a use case of where the protocols are working, and there's plenty of use cases of where people aren't even trying the protocols, where people are getting the virus. There's some very significant people getting the virus in environments where the protocols are not used or enforced. So I'm going to give the protocols a shot. It seems like the track record's better than the no protocol try. But that's just me. I don't think the cruise bubble is going to be for everybody, but it's going to be for certain people. But that is how cruising will resume, in the cruise bubble. Richard Fain even noting that the early cruises that Royal Caribbean are going to do, they're going to be non-revenue cruises. So I don't know if that means they're going to bring people on for free, if it's going to be employees, travel agents. More of that will come out as time goes on. But Royal Caribbean's commitment is we're going to do cruises, non-revenue cruises, to test out the protocols, to establish the cruise bubble, to make sure that it works okay. And I like it. I think it's a good plan. And look, if the major three cruise lines can execute the cruise bubble as well as MSC has executed the cruise bubble in Italy, then a cruise ship might be one of the safest places to be during this pandemic. That's my take, but what do you think? Why did NCL cancel November? The cruise bubble? Are you ready to get in it? And would you take an excursion to Chernobyl? All those things are on the table. Let's get in the comments. Try to make a new friend. It's easy to make an enemy, but I dare you to make a new friend. Thanks for checking out the Cruise News Show. Please show your support by hitting the like button. This is Tony with Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.